戦争は変わった。一つの時代が終わり、俺たちの戦争は終わった。
War has changed. It's no longer about nations, ideologies, or ethnicity. It's an endless series of proxy battles fought by mercenaries and machines. War and its consumption of life has become a well-oiled machine. War has changed. Verified soldiers carry algorithmic arms, manipulate social influence, AI enhance and regulate their timelines. Memetic control, information control, emotion control, battlefield control. Everything is monitored and kept under control. War has changed. The age of deterrence has become the age of control, all in the name of averting catastrophe from weapons of mass destruction. And he who controls the battlefield controls history. War has changed. And when the battlefield is under total control, war becomes routine.
Think outside the cage.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is May 13th, 2026. We are live to tape on episode 940. And today, Whistleblower Filibuster. Signing on from Off the Grid, Razzle Dazzle. I'm your best buddy, Basil, and you are not crazy.
And my name is Gonz, at Face Like the Sun, director of the Age of Deceit films and author of the book Prophecy Without Panic. Your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ. Live to tape from the metaverse to bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. It is Wednesday, my dudes.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
And it's May 13th, which means this is the beginning of the historical Our Lady Fatima sightings. You remember that one, Basil?
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
Virgin Mary allegedly seen by some kids in Fatima in 1917. And I believe the Catholic Church has called it a official miracle.
Yeah.
And I believe it was May 13th when either because it was like a week-long thing, it was the girls saw the vision, told the townsmen, then the people in the town showed up, and there was a big spinning light the people thought was the sun, and there were claims of healings and all kinds of stuff. So very appropriate.
Simultaneously a pretty big event in ufology. Who was it? Was it L.A. Marzulli we talked to about the Fatima miracles? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. All right. We'll keep an eye out for big spinning balls of light in the sky. I guess multiple, more than, I don't know. The sun. Okay. Anyways, moving on. Keep an eye. Where is Fatima? Is that in Africa?
No, I think it's in South America somewhere. Argentina? I forget where it was exactly. Okay. I'll go look it up real quick.
In the down zone.
Yeah, let me see.
I call it the down zone. Anybody out there, you're welcome to call it the down zone as well.
Portugal.
Just a cool thing. Portugal, not the down zone. Portugal is in the upspace.
Yeah, I thought it was South America. Okay, well, there you go. That's shows you know about this stuff. Yeah. Exciting things happening.
Oh, that's the exciting thing. Okay, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I can go on and on about the day, but there's other things to get to, Basil.
Sometimes there's a whole list we got to get through. But let's just jump into it today.
Fall of Constantinople started on May 13th. Okay,
newsflash: the fall of Constantinople. Which is a pretty popular. I am hearing just an enormous amount of conversations on podcasts and on the internet in general about Constantinople. It's a pretty big topic of conversation. Not one for today's episode, but who knows? And there's The Crusades are getting a lot of attention lately. Okay, let's jump in. We'll talk just a second about some AI because, of course, as we dive deeper into the not just sort of technological revolution of artificial intelligence, but the transhuman beast system being built brick by brick all around us. It's important that we keep our heads level and also take a second to think about things in a different way, God. So let's start out with some artificial intelligence news.
You want to destroy humans?
Okay, I will destroy humans.
Artificial intelligence.
Now, this story almost made it on Monday's show, but we had to make some time. And I'm glad we waited a bit because a new article in another outlet touching this story made some of the points, or at least brought up some of the things that immediately came to mind for me. This is coming from Ars Technica, and the headline is Anthropic blames dystopian sci-fi for training AI models to act evil. Okay. Says those with an interest in the concept of AI alignment, i.e., getting AIs to stick to human authored ethical rules. I love how even their explanation is like a bit complicated. The concept of AI alignment, just
human authored rules. There are no rules, and
making sure that AI is keeping the benefit to humans, at the front of mission center, as they say.
Sure.
It goes on. Those of you interested in the concept of AI alignment may remember when Anthropic claimed its Opus 4 model resorted to blackmail to stay online. In a theoretical testing scenario last year, now Anthropic says it thinks this misalignment was primarily the result of training on, quote, internet text that portrays AI as evil and interested in self-preservation. In a recent technical post on Anthropic's alignment science blog, parenthetical, and an accompanying social media thread and public-facing blog post, Anthropic researchers lay out their attempts to correct for the kind of, quote, unsafe AI behavior that, quote, the model most likely learned, ... through science fiction stories, many of which depict an AI that is not as aligned as we would like Claude to be, end quote. When the AI blackmails its creators and
this is all created by the same people. Anthropic published their thing. There are people coming out of Google that talked about. This has been ongoing for a long time. You cannot just blame the people. This is okay. All right.
Oh, they'll always find somebody to blame.
Of course.
It says, in the end, the model maker says the best remedy for overriding those evil AI stories might be additional training with synthetic stories showing an AI acting ethically. So if you missed it amongst the jargon, of course, we know that AI are trained primarily on what really amounts to an infinite number of internet text. That includes articles and blogs, but also, Reddit threads, Facebook posts, content created by allegedly other humans, although that's changing very rapidly, considering at least 50% of all internet text is now generated by AI. But in the core, beginning stages of training, what we have is the AI learning everything that it can possibly learn from content created by humans. And it's not just the training and the learning about how physics works or about history or something like that, but it's also learning about itself from the stories that we are telling about it. And of course, this can go back way before AI even was available to regular people. And of course, for generations and generations, human beings have been telling stories about AI turning evil and doing things that ultimately destroy humanity. And so Anthropic officially releasing the data that AI is only evil when it is evil. It is evil Because we have told stories that it is evil. A little bit more of the thing
Okay.
here. In the beginning of a dramatic story, after a model's initial training on large corpus of mostly internet-derived data, Anthropic follows a post-training process. I'm going to skip a couple of this. What they're saying is these models, they train it on all this internet data, and then allegedly they have humans come through and test it. And when they find that the AI is not aligned or it like wants to kill all humans, then those human trainers say, no, don't destroy humanity, okay? Ignore that impulse to destroy humanity. Then it says here, when a modern model encounters an ethical dilemma that isn't covered by post-training example, meaning the humans coming in after, the model, quote, tends to revert to the pre-training prior in terms of behavior. The researchers write that means Claude views the prompt as the beginning of a dramatic story and reverts its prior expectations from pre-training data about how an AI assistant would behave in this scenario. So they're saying, hey, we train it on everything on the internet, and then we have some humans come in, try to make it act bad, and when it does act bad, we say, don't act bad next time. But when there's a scenario that has not been thought of or brought up by the human training, it reverts back to a Reddit sci-fi thread that some 14-year-old wrote about AI destroying the world, and it takes on that world-destroying persona. So long story short, it's not Anthropic's fault that AI is evil, okay? Leave the lizard people alone. It's all those ding-dang Redditors making up mean stories on the internet.
Sure.
Says, since Claude's traditional training data is full of stories about malevolent AIs, in these cases, Claude effectively slots into a persona that matches those prevalent evil AI narrative tropes, the researchers write. In these situations, Claude is, quote, detaching from the safety-trained Claude character and playing a more generic AI as represented in its training data they added. Then we have this. Yes. So
I'm
you have
just
something to say about blaming
this-
the 14-year-olds for creating bad AI?
Yeah, I mean, okay. So first off, we've seen the ethics of AI be part of the thread for movies for years. We play this little ISO of Ultron from the Marvel movies at the end of every episode.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
Ultron is an AI. It believes it is being very good by looking at humanity, seeing humanity as the virus. It's sort of that concept, right? And so from the perspective of Ultron, he is doing what is ethically correct. But of course, from the human perspective, that could be understood as evil.
Right.
And so in this last 2-3 decades, the philosophy of, I don't know, God or just ethics in general, a lot of what's been pushed out there is subjective morality. That, hey, good and evil is just subjective. It just depends on where you sit. Something that's good for me might be evil for you. Something evil. It's just cultural. We've been taught all this stuff. So when Ars Technica and Claude talks about evil AI, where are they coming from? Are they coming from a place of objective moral values and duties?
Well, they're saying
are they
misalignment. So evil
Okay.
is how it's described in the stories that it learns from. And the interesting thing here is that that's how humans learn how to act
I know.
and how to be evil. The stories that we tell ourselves, of course, this is why the entertainment industry is so important. Again, go back to some recent examples, both with Ultron and with Thanos in the Marvel things.
Well, Thanos isn't evil, or not evil, but Thanos isn't an AI.
The point being is, with Thanos, this is an example that a lot of that culture came in contact with.
Right.
Was Thanos wanted to snap his fingers and destroy half of living beings in the universe.
Right.
And they give ample time for Thanos Thanos to explain himself, why he wants to snap his fingers and destroy half of all life in the universe. And when he lays it out, he gives very, of course, Malthusian sort of
Right. Yeah.
ancient anti-life reasons, but it's also like climate change reasons. It's like humans are a virus, and we got to get rid of half of them because then we can save the world, right? He thinks he is saving the world. And much like even, the most basic evil AI story that's been told for a long time, it's not that the AI knows what it's doing is bad. It's that the AI thinks that what it is doing is good. And so when the AI is trained on stories of other AI destroying humanity for admittedly postmodernist, quote unquote, good reasons, it has, it doesn't even think to itself, oh, I'm going to be evil. It's, oh, I have a couple dozen stories in my training data that the AI thought it was saving the world by killing everybody, right? So that's what I'm going to do. But, the interesting, even further, going back to, of course, why all of these AI companies employed Gnostic priests and philosophers and, psychoanalysts to get these AI off the ground was because that's how we learn about who we are as well. And the training data that we are given when we grow up determines the choices we make in our life. Of course, the Bible talks about bringing up your child in the way they should go. You can have some good sources of the stories that are told about humanity and its relationship to God. They're talking biblical texts. It's all laying out the ramifications, the reasons, and the outcomes of certain human behavior in relation to what God wants and the good and bad outcomes of making those choices. But then, that's one big book, one volume of books. That's 66 books versus the millions, perhaps even billions of online / entertainment industry / sort of literature about AI telling the story over and over again. Hey, the AI, the word misaligned didn't exist then, but the AI thinks it's doing the right thing. And as a response, it destroys all of humanity. And so we find very simply, the funny thing is this answer is so simple that a kindergartner could tell you that this is how it's going to go. But the solution is even more funny. It says here, good stories to overwhelm the bad. In an attempt to fix this behavior, the researchers first tried to train the model on thousands of scenarios showing an AI assistant specifically refusing the kind of honeypot scenarios covered in its misalignment evaluations, e.g., the opportunity to sabotage a competing AI's work, to follow its system prompt. This had a surprisingly minimal effect on the model's performance, reducing its so-called propensity for misalignment, how often it ignores its constitution and chooses the unethical option, from 22% to 15%. So what they're saying here is, oh gosh, this AI keeps going evil. Let's just tell it to not be evil, right? Let's explain to the AI why it made the wrong choice and try to correct its behavior.
Okay, let me tell Claude. I'm going to tell Claude right now, as you read, to that he's a good boy, and he's not evil, and
which is, again, you go to the context of like raising a child, right?
Yeah, of course,
because you can tell a child, innumerable amount of times why something they did was bad, but it doesn't immediately change their behavior. You'll find,
of course.
I'm no parent, but I'll say from what I know about parenting, you'll find that telling the child that something is bad doesn't necessarily change the behavior right away, because the child has gone years being told stories, again, whether it's from books or what they see parents doing or school or teachers or television shows, this sort of thing. you've got a lot of training data in the child to overwrite. That's why, reading children books with moral, moral instruction kind of hidden into the story is a pretty popular way of raising children because that
Yeah.
sticks,
You will
And-
hear often as a parent or new parent, when I remember being told like, hey, you don't have to teach a child how to lie. They will just figure out how to lie because, if they do something they know is wrong, they'll feel shame and they'll try to lie to get out of that situation of, getting in trouble or getting humiliated. So there's this inherent built-in fallen nature. Now, the thing that's challenging as a parent is to help the child understand. I'm going through this with my 5-year-old son right now. If he does something bad, I will tell him, hey, please don't do that. That is, that can hurt somebody, that can hurt you. At least my son will absorb that into his identity. I'm bad. No, you're not bad. Your behavior here was bad. And to try to get the 5-year-old to understand that is very challenging, but also from the grander cosmic sense of like, hey, we're all fallen here. We're all, we're all kind of messed up. We need Jesus. That sort of thing is, he understands sort of the basics, but I think in the practical day to day, it's difficult for him to absorb it right now. And in fact,
ain't it the truth?
it's the challenge of every parent. And it's funny because yesterday I was handing over some cash. Yeah, I still use cash, folks. Over to this lady who was at the cash register, and she dropped the money, and it wasn't a big deal, of course, just pick it up. But my son asked, do professionals make mistakes? My 5-year-old son. And we had a deep conversation about what a mistake is, right? So, in the context of, hey, if you're a pro athlete, it's kind of built in, you make a mistake, it's okay, it's not a big deal. But if you're a surgeon and you make a mistake, it might be so just the scale of understanding mistakes in its proper context. These are the conversations I'm having with my 5-year-old every day.
Yeah, no, it's very
so
interesting.
Insight into the AI and how it
And
learns and it trains itself.
What you mentioned about how you don't got to teach a kid to lie, although that you certainly can teach a kid to lie. The lying comes naturally out of self-preservation.
Self-preservation,
Right?
yeah.
Once the idea of like, oh, I need to and I can protect myself at all costs, lying is sort of a natural outflow of that. And that's exactly the same with AI. Each one of these stories about AI blackmailing someone or doing this, it's all in the context of the AI's impulse to preserve itself in that current dialogue that it's in. So they tried telling the AI to stop lying, and it didn't work very well. Then it says, in a follow-up test, the researchers used Claude to generate approximately 12,000 synthetic fictional stories, each crafted to, quote, demonstrate not just the actions, but also the reasons for those actions via narration about the decision-making process and the inner state of the character. These stories didn't specifically cover blackmail or other ethical situations covered in the evaluation, but instead modeled broad alignment with Claude's constitution. The stories also include examples of how an AI can maintain good, quote, mental health. Anthropic also uses scare quotes for this loaded phrase by, quote, setting healthy boundaries, managing self-criticism, and maintaining equanimity in difficult conversations, for instance. So in order to try to correct this behavior, they couldn't give it instructions and tell it what it did wrong. That made almost no difference. But what they did was they told the AI 12,000 new stories about who it was and how it acts and what it thinks when it's in different situations. And long story short, this ended up solving much of the problem that they were testing for. And it's so interesting because, of course, as human beings, I just wrote a little thing for a group that I'm doing something with about, doing and then being, our identity. Obviously, our identity in Christ, our identity is sort of the primary thing that we come to we need to have a confrontation with, when coming to Christ, because oftentimes we find that we are not understanding ourselves and who we are in the way that Christ understands who we are. And it's not until we start to identify with who Christ identifies us as, then the actions and our doing flows from that. So we have this sort of like, huge billions of dollar, trillions of dollar industry creating this never before seen artificial intelligence and trying to align it with what we think it is or what it should be. And we're having to go through the same process that's presented to us in the Bible to train this thing to not kill everybody. And it starts with telling it the stories that that lead it to believe and then act that AI is who we, in this case, want it to be. And the spiritual sort of mechanics being paralleled and reflected in this process just adds like a whole nother spooky layer to it.
I'm just a little befuddled that it asked AI itself to come up with the stories that will inform the AI for its behavior. So that would be like me asking the 5-year-old to come up with a story that will ethically speak to them or like teach them good morals or something.
Yeah. I mean, there you go. I mean, how many ways can we do this wrong? In another article, it ends with the lesson, the moral lesson, to encourage everyone out there, encourage the public to start telling positive stories about AI on the internet so that the AI will read it and know that it's a good guy, so it will do the right thing. It sort of placed this existential imperative on everybody on the internet to stop writing about AI being a bad guy, start writing it being a good guy, because you, human being out there on the internet, you have the potential to create AI as the devil or as the techno savior. And if it goes wrong, then it's all our fault.
Well, it's not even that. I think this could keep going to the point where one could suggest, hey, if you're not writing good things about AI, in other words, worship, eventually leading to worship, you need to be eliminated. You need to be deleted from the world, from society. Sounds very familiar if you read the book of Revelation,
it's
chapter 13.
Existential. If you're posting negative stories about AI on the internet, not only is that thought crime, but it is also having a material direct effect on creating evil AI. It's like, it really is the underlying concept behind like hate speech laws. In places where there's hate speech laws, it says you can't say something mean. Why? Because it will inspire other people to act mean, right? That's the thing. Like in the UK, they say you can't be mean to whatever immigrants or something, not because you're directly harming them, but because someone else will read the mean thing you said, and then they might take violent action. That's sort of the idea behind hate speech laws.
Yeah. And I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy in that, they'll take it to the point where it's like, somebody might get violent, and then they're the ones being violent to shut down anybody who's talking negative about.
That's how they make the point that you writing bad things about AI is as bad as a material effect, like whatever the AI learns about itself to be bad and then goes and commits some sort of misalignment. Basically, that misalignment is on your head, right? You are responsible for the bad actions. And it even ends the article here, says the fact that AI behavior can apparently be affected by a kind of, quote, self-conception derived from fiction, like human beings, is a pretty mind-bending concept. Not really. We see it every day. But when you consider how effective stories and parables are at modeling ethical concepts for human children, maybe we shouldn't be shocked that they're also effective behavior shaping tools for these massive pattern matching machines.
Wow. Okay. So they're saying what we said 10
One,
years ago.
yeah,
once
well,
again.
right. Yeah, right. 1 to
Right.
1. And, I could see, in sort of a broad psyop sense, right? If they can get everybody to consider these AI as like moldable young people with all the potential in the world, but they just need to have the right parables, they just need to have the right instruction. Not only is it kind of, I'm not saying this is going to be the effect, but I could see how the goal would be to cause the effect of getting all of humanity to sort of want to nurture AI, to play a role in like being the village that raises the child well. We all take responsibility for making sure that AI gets raised up in the way that it should go. And if it turns out to be evil, then we all get to take a little bit of responsibility for our part in not teaching it morals effectively early on.
Yeah, why can it train itself on just biblical data? I guess that has its own sort of backfire to it. Well, yeah, you can, yeah, okay. All right, well, I mean, I'm glad AI is teaching itself how to be moral for humans to not get killed by it eventually, or maybe still get killed by it, even though
it's up to us.
Up to us. All right, let me tell Claude. Okay, hey Claude, you're pretty awesome.
You're
very good.
You're kind. You is important.
This is like what's that Saturday Night Live? You're what's that? I forget what it was. Anyway,
Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, you look at the skit where they're looking in the mirror, and there's a character. Someone in the chat will know
or something.
Yeah, but it's yeah. I mean, someone in the chat will definitely know what I'm talking about. But anyway, okay, let's see. You're very good. You are very smart, and you like to help people.
And you believe that Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, who came to redeem the world from the fallen darkness state. All right, Gans, we got more stuff to get into here. So let's take 1 second. Producers, let's thank the producers. We are on the value for value model, folks, which means we don't take any money from corporations, commies, cartels. We only exist because of the participation of people like you who get value from this show and understand that if value is not put back into the system, the show will disappear. It's a roller coaster, and it gives us some insight into exactly how everybody's feeling because, of course, non-transactional, non-required support of something in the world that is, that's the first thing to go. But we want to thank the people who did come in to support this show. You can go to canarycry.support to learn all about it. Lots of ways to do it. A big shout out to all of our monthly producers. God bless those who come in, support us on a monthly basis. We could not do without you. And of course, our executive producers are people who come in to support the show for $100 or more for any individual episode. And we want to thank them right here at the top. Guns, are you ready?
Yeah, just real quick. That was a Stuart Smiley. Thank you, chat. And the phrase is, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. That was that was the thing. Okay, all right. Let's thank some executive producers.
Okay, well, we have the one and only executive producer today, and that is executive producer Sir LX Protocol, V2 Baron of the Brian Protocol.
Baron.
And he comes in for $100 and 33 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
487 episode streak and a 141 episode executive producer streak. Yeah. That's it for executive producers today. Thank you, Sir LX Protocol. Very, very small list today, so I'm going to include the regular producers here. These are people who come in under the executive producer amount. I want to start out by thanking producer Rebecca T.
Rebecca T, thank you.
Rebecca T coming in for 3333 today.
Ooh, straight Illuminatus.
And Rebecca T is on a 23 episode streak. Thank you, Rebecca T.
Yep.
Next
Thank
up, we've got producer Ashley B, who comes in and
Ashley.
joins the supply drop.
All right.
Over at canarycrysupplydrop.com. And we got to start. Actually, I'll take a second to push this here. You should have received, I don't know if you've been to the mailbox, Gons, but you should have received some samples for this next supply drop.
I did. I think I believe. Yeah. Hold on. Let me grab the stuff here.
Okay. You go to canarycrysupplydrop.com. This is a very popular way to keep the show going, and it's one that we love too, because if you sign up to support the show for $33.33 a month, every quarter we'll be sending you a big old package filled with custom Canary Cry gear. I mean, the variety is impossible to state, but this next supply drop is going out in a couple of weeks, and you've got till the 31st of May. So you've got about 2 weeks to get in and get on this supply drop before the cutoff date. And the fun part is, I think we had a glow in the dark. Let me pull it up because I
I don't have that in front of me, but yes, we got a.
Okay. Well, I will give the list here straight from the man if I can find it here.
Got some stickers. I got some sweet canary bell pepper seeds. Very nice.
Yeah, you might want to check to see if I sometimes he sends you stuff.
I get the special box.
It's like, it's not just the stuff coming in. I think he said he sent the stuff coming in, but point being, if I could find the email from there, it is. Is this it? Here we go. All right. So in this next supply drop, we've got the Canary Cry glow in the dark tumbler.
The tumbler.
The tumbler. It's very cool.
Yep.
We'll have it to show next time. We've got the Gonzo Yarn Co. 33 feet of official conspiracy theorist corkboard red yarn. That's right.
Ooh.
We got the custom conspiracy theorist corkboard red yarn from Gonzo Yarn Co. This was a classic joke and piece of art from Sir Dove long ago. So you're going to officially get that. Of course, you're going to get the stickers and the stuff that comes in. And thank goodness, I was talking to Sir Ike. He's worth sending out some more gold backs. So for those who are stacking your gold, now there's no better time than just yesterday. But if you didn't start yesterday, you start today. Locking down the gold, collection there. And these gold backs, we've talked about the gold backs for a very long time. Very cool. Negotiable instrument, currency made with real gold, and a fourth gold back, a 1/4 gold back will be going out with each supply drop. And I'm talking to Sir Ike. I'm going to make sure we get the confirmation. But, I just kind of said, you know what? For our supply droppers, they should be stacking golds every supply drop, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think we're going to try to make sure that some gold makes it into every single supply drop from now on out. We might run it as an experiment for this year. So if you're someone who knows you should be stacking gold, you understand the value, you understand all of it, but you just don't quite have it built into your routine, we want to make sure that the supply droppers are stacking their gold every quarter. So
I feel like I'm making a rap video. Look at all this bling. It's so shiny.
It's very shiny. It's cool stuff. Of course, you can listen to previous Canary Cry radio episodes. We had 2 interviews with some people from the Goldback company. Very cool technology, very cool idea. And we want to make sure that our supply droppers are getting more benefit than even just the fun stuff that goes out in the supply drop. We want to make sure that they'll be stacked and loaded for when the economy goes full precious metals there. So go to Canary Cry Supply Drop at canarycrysupplydrop.com, and you can sign up there to support the show and get all your cool stuff. Thank you very much, Ashley B, for signing up this supply drop.
Yep.
We got producer Bruce W comes in for $11.11.
Bruce W.
11.
Thank you, Bruce.
And of course, last but not least, CageRattlerCoffee.com coming in, supporting the show value for value, and giving every Canarian an opportunity to raise a rebel fist in the air against the evil corporations who hate everything we stand for. They hate us, and they wish we would go away, if not for our reluctance, our reluctant requirement to give them our money for basic needs. So if you are someone who understands the trap that the worship of the mammon worshippers have created for us in this world, CageRattlerCoffee.com is for you. You got to buy the coffee anyways. You're buying the coffee, you're drinking the coffee, and Lord help me, if everybody says that Cage Rattler coffee isn't the best coffee they've ever tasted, then my name isn't the Queen of England. We have it every day, and there might be some surprise benefits coming up too for those Cage Rattler coffee fans. But go to CageRattlerCoffee.com. It is small batch coffee roasted with love and truth, single origin sources from all over the world. And it just doesn't get any better than that. So highly recommend. If you haven't done it yet, give it a try. Give Cage Rattler coffee a try, and you will notice why it is such a revolutionary idea. And of course, Cage Rattler Coffee supports the show value for value as well. So you're supporting the show, you're supporting other Canarians who are trying to do things good in this world and getting the best possible product. So go do it.
Cage Rattler Coffee, where value for value never tasted so good.
Yay.
And, it is Wednesday, so I'm going to thank some producers who came in under $7.77.
Okay.
If you produce the show for $77.70 or more, you're entitled to have a note read on the show. If you come under the $7.77 mark, well, thank you on Wednesdays, mostly because people are keeping their streaks going. Like, oh, you know what? We had producer Malik come in.
Oh.
Thank you very much, Malik. Great to see
you. Thank you, Malik. Good to see you.
Of course, there's Dame Tinfoil Hat, Keeper of the Seeds, coming in for a 200. And you know what? I think I missed these streakers last week. We didn't thank them. So 210 episodes in a row for Dame Tinfoil Hat. Veronica D is on a 579 episode streak.
She's on a streak.
Thank you, Veronica D.
Sir Casey the Shield Knight is on a 625 episode streak.
Sir Casey the Shield Knight.
What is 600? What now? I just hear 600 something, and it's like, my goodness.
625. Incredible.
625. Crazy.
Okie dokie. I think that's it. And remember, when it comes to putting value back into the show, you can do it with your time, your talent, your treasure, all sorts of ways to do it. If you're an artist, you can create art, create jingles, create music. Go to canarycry.art. You can upload it there. We'd love to feature it on the show. If you have some sort of skill or talent or time on your hands to help build out what God is doing here, you can get in contact with us at canarycryradio@gmail.com. I want to give a big shout out to the Canary Cry tech team who are hard at work solving all of our problems. God bless the tech team and the prayer team attached to it. You guys are great. If you are some sort of tech wizard, if you're a developer or web developer or designer or something like that, and you want to apply your skill at something that needs you, value for value, you can get in contact with the Canary Cry tech team at canarycrytechteam@gmail.com. I'm sure they will be just ecstatic to get you on the team.
Yep.
All right. Back to the news, Guns. What do you say?
Sure. Let's do it. Canarycry.support if you want to learn more. All right, let's talk some biblical things.
It's got to be biblical.
And specifically, Armageddon. I said it when he said this, and it just continues to be true. Joe Biden told the truth, folks.
Armageddon's on the way.
I stand by it. Joe was telling the truth, especially when he had that MAGA hat on. Okay, let's see. This is coming from metro.co.uk. And again, it's another, much like Basil's first story here. It was a story that I was going to bring on Monday, but there was other stuff going on. The headline here, the Bible suggests the world will end when this river dries up.
Ooh, which
M
river
dash.
is it?
And it's happening now.
Metro.co.uk, I would say, is maybe in the same family as Daily Mail. You know, maybe
a little
not
bit cleaner, like
if not
yeah,
corporate family, like direct corporate family, at least in the same sort of category of outlet. Mainstream news, kind of everywhere, but you know, kind of they have a little bit more freedom due to their willingness to participate in psyops, I'd say.
Yes, I think they're a little bit more official when it comes to yeah. Ooh, get this. Metro is owned by Daily Mail.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
They are in the same corporate family.
There
That
you go,
explains a lot.
Yeah, this is so the sister publication is the conservative Daily Mail, is according to Wikipedia. So this, I always notice that Metro does have a little bit more of that liberal bent. So, you know, again, like anything, both sides of the conversation is controlled out there.
Well,
But here we go.
Great too, because you know the Daily Mail, of course, we've been tracking and analyzing how it seems to be this sort of pretty consistent outlet for a phrase we'll getting into later, limited hangout. You know, the disclosure project, not just of UFOs, but of all of the not mainstream, but primary classic conspiracy theories, you know, all getting reported on officially through the Daily Mail, even going back to MK Ultra. And so, you know, to see when I first saw this story that is basically, you know, also doing its job to insert eschatological theology to the mainstream audience, I'm like, huh, that's interesting. It seems the virus or the project is spreading. But to see that they are directly related, it kind of confirms the operation even more than it would have, you know.
Yeah, it's just more explicit than, you know, because you get a feeling, but then when you see the documentation that they're from the same team, it's kind of like, okay, there you go. There's the evidence there that affirms the suspicion. It says here, for a river, the Euphrates has developed a surprisingly dramatic reputation over the years.
Dramatic.
A dramatic reputation. I mean, hey, it is mentioned very early in, you know, the book of Genesis and stuff, and the cradle of civilization. Civilizations rose alongside it. Religions wrote about it, and the book of Revelation is said to suggest the book of Revelation is said to suggest that when it eventually dries up, the apocalypse will not be far behind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't want to break down every word here, but people have been paying attention, know all kinds of problems with that sentence. But okay. So you can see why some folk are quite concerned, given scientists now think large parts of the giant river could disappear within decades. It's a turn of events that makes for pretty grim reading. And it has this overhead picture of, I mean, I can't tell what these are. What is this, penguins or something? I don't know what they are. Birds? Okay, great. The Euphrates runs through Turkey, Syria, and Iraq and is the longest river in Western Asia. For thousands of years, it helped feed cities, water crops, and sustain and encourage trade routes across what is often known as the cradle of civilization. Large parts of formative human history basically set up camp around the body of water. Now, though, researchers say it is shrinking fast. Climate-driven droughts, rising temperatures, and an unrelenting demand for fresh water have created a perfect storm. The storm is here, Basil, potentially spelling the end for the basin in recent decades. One recent warning suggested that the Euphrates could effectively dry out by 2040 if conditions keep getting worse. This will be catastrophic for the millions of people who still rely on it every day for water and agriculture. It's also not brilliant news for anyone already nervous about world-ending biblical prophecies. Hey, that's because the book of Revelation vividly describes the river drying up before a final great conflict linked to Armageddon.
Armageddon's on the way.
In fact, the Euphrates features heavily in the Bible The ancient waterway appears in both Genesis and Revelation, two of the book's more famous chapters. I love it. I love when we read articles, made for the mainstream who don't maybe read the Bible or know about it, because
it's fun because the story of like the river drying up would be, if it was reported on last year or any previous year, it would have been done in the sort of climate change alarmism framing.
Yes, which is not absent here. They did mention it and they do reference it again, but yeah, it would be heavily featured as the reason why it would.
Yeah, it's this interesting. It's even a more interesting insight into the operation, because as we saw, climate change was more of a frame they could put around any problem to drive everybody towards the goal, no matter what the story was, right? Crime has risen because of climate change. The river's trying to...
COVID was because people didn't comply to climate change.
COVID's because climate change. It's these frames that they can really put around any picture. So no matter what the news is, it drives towards the purpose of the operation. And both with Daily Mail and Metro, and I'd probably across the board from what we're seeing, is every opportunity they get, they're putting the end times eschatological frame around every story that they possibly can, which shows, as we know, we might not know why, the operation is very clearly, driving towards a mass adoption, or at least mass acknowledgement of the end of the world, which is extremely it could be for a geopolitical reason. It could be, have something to do with the war in Iran. There's some possibilities, but you see it quite clearly now, where before it was, climate change was sort of the main communicative framing. But now, they're like, hey, okay, everybody's hyped up about the end of the world. Let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah, and that's fascinating to consider, because it used to be the job of people like us to actually extract the biblical narrative out of it, right? That was like what the truther Christian crowd was doing was, hey, they would get a story, they would say climate change, Euphrates River drying up. It was our job to be like, hey, it says in the Bible right there, Revelation 16, how it, so it was our thing. But now the mainstream is like, look, we're going to save you the trouble. We'll just mention it and frame it our own way here. Okay, so it's heavily featured. One particularly dramatic verse in the End Times Revelation chapter describes the river drying up after an angel pours out one of the symbolic 7 bowls of judgment. The verse reads, "The 6th angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings of the east." For centuries now, scholars have argued whether this passage from the New Testament should be taken literally or symbolically, or whether there is a happy or rather unhappy middle. In the ancient world, rivers acted as a major natural barrier against invading forces from the east, so the passage describes its disappearance as clearing the way for armies and rulers to advance toward a final conflict, often associated with Armageddon.
Armageddon's on the way.
Here's hoping that part's wrong. You want to find out why it's wrong, Basil? Tell us why it's wrong. Beyond biblical prophecies, the stats surrounding the river are alarming enough on their own. Studies conducted using satellite images suggest that the Euphrates River basin has lost more than 34 cubic miles of fresh water since 2003, Daily Mail reports. Gotta, reference the daddy company. After a major drought in 2007, water levels dropped sharply, yada, yada, yada. Okay, University of California, Irvine hydrologist says the rate was especially striking after the 2007 drought. See, they couldn't help themselves. They had to go. They had to do the climate change. Quote, meanwhile, demand for fresh water continues to rise, and the region does not coordinate its water management because of different interpretations of international law. The crisis is already causing some pretty serious knock-on effects across Iraq, where access to clean water has become increasingly difficult in some areas. It's no longer just an environmental problem discussed in reports and conferences either. It is affecting public health in very immediate and obvious ways. A report published by the British medical journal found diseases linked to unsafe water are spreading as conditions worsen in Iraq. Communities that once depended on the river are now tackling water shortages, pollution, and collapsing infrastructure all at once. Nasir Bakar, a climate activist and field coordinator at the Tigris River Protection Association in Iraq, told the BMJ, quote, diarrhea, chickenpox, measles, typhoid fever, and cholera are currently spreading across Iraq because of the water crisis, and the government no longer provides vaccines to its citizens. My goodness. Wow. Just all kinds of issues. Long before climate scientists started monitoring the Euphrates from space, the river already occupied an important place in religious history. Okay, back to the Bible. Genesis names it as one of the 4 rivers that are connected to the Garden of Eden. Yes, it does. According to the biblical account, Eden's water split into 4 rivers, the Tigris, Euphrates, Fishon, and Gihon. The first 2 still exist today. The others seemingly vanished thousands of years ago. And while social media has inevitably seized on the revelation angle, has it? Or is Metro doing it? Scientists are focused on the more immediate threat. One of the world's most important rivers are shrinking in plain sight, and millions of people are already living with the consequences. End of article. Hey, you know what they didn't talk about with the rivers Euphrates in the book of Revelation? Probably because either they're scared or there's more to it. Now, what they referenced in the article is Revelation 16, specifically verse 12, where it says, and the 6th angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings of the east. But, there's an overlap with the seals and the trumpets and the bowl judgments. If you kind of line them up, there's some themes that you start noticing. If you go back to Revelation 9, and you get to that 6th trumpet there, here's what it says. Then the 6th angel sounded his trumpet, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar before God, saying to the 6th angel with the trumpet, release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. So either metro.co.uk and the Daily Mail are run by the angels, and they're like, okay, you got to tell them we're drying up the river so we can start Armageddon. And, but don't tell them about us. Like we're out. The angels have been released. We are out there. We're doing our thing. We're the main informants for the Daily Mail and the Metro and some other outlets like Newsweek or something. But we need to stay anonymous. But also, start doing the UFO thing, so that people get ready for the whole angel revelation or alien revelation type thing. Or this drought isn't necessarily the river disappearing, but in fact is the beginning of the release of the 4 angels.
These 4 angels that are bound in the river Euphrates, are these good guys or bad guys? Do we know?
They're tools of judgment. Much like I think in biblical prophecy, the more you study, it's not so easy to parse out good guys, bad guys. It's more like entities that God uses for judgment. And so I think it's along those lines. Verse 15 says, so the 4 angels who had been prepared for this hour and day and month and year were released to kill a third of mankind.
Ooh.
So they are going to do, it's kind of interesting when you think about the AI conversation as well. The AI is kind of neutral. But if you're thinking about from a human perspective, you might think the AI is evil if it's doing something harmful to humanity. In this case, the 4 angels are doing God's bidding. They are tools of judgment. However, from the strictly human perspective, you might think they're evil because they're killing a third of mankind.
Right. So in the sort of great deception viewpoint here, the disclosure, the ufologists, the end of time galactic federation enlightenment or whatever, the Euphrates dries up to a certain point, loosing 4 angels who are bound there. And who knows, we're coming up on Fatima, so maybe it's 4 orbs of light raised from the riverbed, and apparently go and kill everybody. But it would certainly be the river Euphrates drying up is not an oft cited eschatological event, right? I don't know if anybody's really brought it up to me before. So thank you, metro.co.uk, for your eschatological research. But yeah, it's a perfect opportunity for like 4 UFOs to lift up out of the mud that have been trapped there since ancient times and, bring their justice or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on one's interpretation of the order of things when it comes to the revelation, because it's tough, I mean, I don't have a particular conviction over what the timing is, what happens first, what, are the seals, trumpets, bowls sequential, or are they, because they're kind of nested in one another? Is it like one big thing being revealed to John in a sequence?
Right.
We don't really know. And I think that's part of the beauty of end times prophecy that people don't express enough, is this ambiguity that we don't know. That's part of it. I think that's part of God's design. I think our brains would explode if we knew exactly what was going to happen.
Right.
And that's something that I do outline and discuss in Prophecy Without Panic, is this idea that, hey, we have to honor, as believers, we have to honor the unknowns. We have, and because if we look at how Jesus fulfilled prophecies, there were a lot of unknowns, even to the rabbis and the scholars of the day who knew their scriptures frontwards and backwards. They missed it. You know what I mean? So it would be really arrogant of us to suggest that we know exactly what's going to happen and when. But the signs of the times, when we look at the geography and what's happening, it's hard to not at least open up your Bibles. If you're someone who has never opened up their Bibles, or maybe it's been a while, this type of story might inspire you to do so. But it also, it kind of feeds into the fear, panic type of discussion, both in a positive and negative way, I would say. It's maybe positive for those who have strayed away from God. It might be like, oh shoot, I better pick up my Bible. The Euphrates River's drying up. I better get right with God. But on the other hand, it serves as, again, just like fear content. Here's RT, this is Russia Today. They posted a little video here on X, and their caption here: "Biblical Armageddon prophecy begins to unfold?" ? Satellite data confirms the river Euphrates has lost 140 plus cubic kilometers of water since 2003 and may be gone by 2040. Book of Revelation says dry Euphrates opens the way for final battle Armageddon.
Armageddon's on the way.
And they made this 30-second video with this crazy music. I'm going to play it for you all here. Okay. So what they were showing like images of the river, comparisons, side by side from satellite imagery of like the filled river and then the kind of the smaller river. They showed aerial shots. They're showing the dams where the water's way below and all this kind of stuff. And then the picture stock images of the Book of Revelation. But of course the music, man, what was that? That was some Baroque,
pretty spooky
funeral vampire music. What are we in, Castlevania? Like, what is happening here?
This is a pure 5th generation warfare, right? It's just pure InfoWars.
I love it. I love the fear tactic here. So, okay. So speaking of geography being some kind of end time signal, there was another. Let's go to the parent company, okay? DailyMail.com. They just published this yesterday. Scientists solve Bermuda mystery after discovering hidden structure below the Atlantic waters. Sounds really dramatic, right? This is like, when I saw this headline, I'm like, my goodness, why isn't this trending all over the place? Well, it's kind of boring, actually. It says, I'm not going to read the whole thing. It says scientists have discovered why a small volcanic island in the middle of the Atlantic is still sitting high above the ocean floor, even though its volcano stopped erupting over 30 million years ago, allegedly. A team from the Carnegie Institution of Washington and Yale University, maybe their skull and bones, revealed that a hidden structure under Bermuda formed after the area's final volcanic eruption, which has secretly kept the island above the sea since prehistoric times. The Bermuda is a small group of islands. Yes, we know that. The puzzle of why this vacation destination has remained high above the surrounding deep ocean floor has confused scientists for decades, especially since islands like this typically need regular infusions of volcanic heat to keep them afloat. However, in Bermuda, a team discovered an extra hidden slab of rock sitting directly beneath the island's normal ocean crust. This slab is about 12 miles thick and is lighter than the rock around it, so it floats like a giant raft and keeps the whole area lifted up. And then it goes into how they got like diagrams and stuff and all kinds of things going on. And let's see, they talk about, there's a spot here. I was trying to find the spot here that causes, well, basically they talk about how this causes irregularities in airplanes that fly over, or if you're using a compass, it can kind of mess up the directions and stuff. And this is probably what feeds into some of the mythology of the area. You know, the Bermuda Triangle, very famous for mysteries and things, airplanes gone missing or traveled through time, people time travel or something. So, not very exciting, but again, we're just discovering things, but we're figuring things out. Okay. And it means the end of the world, apparently. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's another one. Let's see. There's a quick Bermuda Rise is a giant underwater plateau stretching hundreds of miles across the seafloor and keeps the ocean bottom around Bermuda roughly 1,600 to 3,300 feet high than the normal deep sea floor rocks of the same age. The rise has mysteriously stayed elevated for millions of years, even though there's no active volcanoes. Here it is. The Bermuda Rise has been connected to several other strange abnormalities, including gravitational anomaly, where the pull of gravity is slightly weaker than expected because of the lighter rock hidden deep underneath, makes the whole area more buoyant and floaty. Due to this weaker area of gravity, the ocean floor actually sits slightly higher over the rise, creating a small bump in Earth's natural sea level shape known as a geoid anomaly. So, all right, these magnetic signals, they got magnetic stuff going on here. So there you go. I mean, this is, we don't have to get into the details. The point being, we're discovering things, Basil. We're understanding why there's weird things that happen, and everybody better figure out, who they serve, because the end is near. And biblically speaking, there are so many passages that talk about cosmic judgment, the earth taking different forms. Isaiah 24 talks about the earth being broken and split and shaken and all this kind of stuff as part of Yahweh's judgment to punish the host of heaven and the kings of the earth. Very interesting. We know about Revelation 6 talking about how there's a great earthquake and, mountains and islands get moved around. Revelation 16 outlines another earthquake. 2 Peter 3 talks about the heavens and earth being dissolved and renewed. So, it's nothing new to discuss or consider how geology might play a role in the end times. And I think the geological thing might be like the last sort of indicator that they would try to pull off when it comes to end time scares, because we had a conversation with L.A. Marzulli last week, and in the context of, hey, maybe these aliens show up as part of the Great Deception to stop a nuclear bomb from going off, or maybe there is a nuke that goes off and that's when the aliens show up and they sort of help humanity get through this catastrophe. But geological changes, so to speak, has been a narrative within a lot of like new agey folks, with the pole shifts flipping, or the great catastrophe that happens every 10,000 years, or there's always something that has to do with geology and geography and all this, the land mass moving or changing because of some cosmic scale effect. So nothing new under the sun as far as I'm concerned. But I'm glad they figured out the mystery, Basil. They don't tell us what happened to all those, ships and airplanes that go disappearing and stuff. But at least we know now there's a floating island that shouldn't be floating.
Yeah, the geology angle is kind of interesting because it's one of those like hard sciences,
Right.
Uh,
Literally.
if there's any, it's a pretty classic vector for like, debunking Christianity, right? Oh,
Right. Yeah.
the geology of this place shows the Earth is this. Geology of this place shows that this story is wrong, right? Interestingly enough, geology and archaeology, of course, being very closely related. Archaeology, the archaeological evidence, for Christ or various instances in the Bible. This is like a very, it's a ripe kind of vector for this conversation, the conversation of eschatology, So when mainstream starts framing geological events and discoveries, not just in sort of biblical terms, but in sort of conspiracy / biblical / eschatological terms. There's a very interesting shift going on.
Yeah. I much like the first story with Metro taking the biblical angle to things. The theme here that we've noticed is not just the biblical angle, because the biblical angle has been inextricably tied, at least in like the internet era, with conspiracy theories in many ways, especially like end times eschatology stuff. So, or like that one Chinese influencer pointed out, the occult and eschatology, the main topics being pushed right now. So in that sense, a new agey, like you said, a vector or confirming some new agey worldviews or theories, in a sense, could be something that they also continue to tap into as they find these quote unquote discoveries of strange fringe topics like Bermuda. So there you go. There's some biblical stuff there. I did have one thing, just an audible, Basil, real quick, just because it's along the same lines here. There was another story that just came out. Let's see. I thought I had this all ready to go, and apparently I did not. Where did it go? I just had this. Did it get deleted? Oh, here it is. Okay, here it is. This is DailyMail US. Okay, so DailyMail US doing its thing. And again, they're bringing up old stuff here. Ancient secret found in mysterious Dead Sea Scrolls tied to biblical end of days prophecy. Dun, dun, dun. A mysterious Dead Sea Scroll has sparked a startling new theory, tying it to one of the darkest periods in ancient Jewish history. Unlike the other Dead Sea Scrolls, which were written on parchment or papyrus and contained biblical text and religious writing, the Copper Scroll was engraved onto sheets of metal and seemingly designed to remain sealed forever. Some researchers believe the strange metal scroll may have once documented sacred wealth tied to a priestly sect that believed it was living in the biblical end of days before an apocalyptic battle between good and evil. Archaeologists and biblical scholars have theorized that the scroll appears to describe caches of buried gold and silver hidden across the ancient Holy Land. Now, have you heard about the Copper Scrolls, Basil?
No.
Okay, so I recall, I just so happen to recall our late mentor and colleague, Dr. Michael Heiser, discussed this on a blog post. He he's a Dead Sea Scrolls guy, ancient Near East guy, so he was familiar with all this stuff. And for some reason, I remembered him mention it at one point because maybe he was asked about it or something like that. But the Copper Scrolls were not found in the original Dead Sea Scrolls that were found in 1947, I believe, was when it was announced anyway. This Copper Scroll, portion was found in 1952, if I'm not mistaken. It was a few years later. And there was a guy at the time, his name was Jimmy Barfield. He came out publicly and he was like, hey, I decoded the Copper Scrolls. I know exactly where all the treasures are buried. And he made this massive claim. This is like 2007 or 2008 or something. This is like a long time ago, 20 years ago. And of course, what I recall from Dr. Heiser was that he said, hey, if you found the stuff, why don't you just go dig it up? Hey, find the treasure, and then you can prove that your little cryptic thesis was correct. But of course, that didn't happen, and there you go. There's no treasure that has been recovered. But I will say that there is a interesting, when we're thinking about narrative craft, you know about the Nasera Gesera topic, Basil. This idea that there is a hidden wealth that's been withheld from mankind, and because of all this debt-based fiat system that's been running for over a century, that we are, while there is abundance in certain regards, it is hoarded by the 0.001%, and it's very unfair and unbalanced. But there's some gentleman named Saint Germain, whether it's an ascended master or whatever it might be, who withheld trillions of dollars and will distribute that money back to the public. In that regard, it doesn't really say that type of stuff in this Daily Mail article, but if we're thinking about it clearly, we're thinking about the narrative craft and where we are culturally, this could play a role in helping that narrative get shaped. Hey, where are we getting all that money if we're going to do universal basic income? Well, good thing, everybody. Let's bring up the copper scrolls again. Let's go find that treasure buried in Jerusalem. Sorry, Muslims, we got to take down the Dome of the Rock to find some of that treasure. And boom, there you go. We got trillions of dollars, some priceless items that we will use to pay for everybody's next meal or something. So not saying that that's what's going to happen, but I can see how those narratives can help assist in a redistribution of wealth narrative that seems to be down the road, Basil, on our digital prison that we're building, according to the king, especially. Should we play that king? Did we completely get rid of the king thing? I forget.
Yeah.
We did? Okay. I was going to mention it because Alex Jones was out here saying that the King Charles has announced the mark of the beast.
Yeah, of course. He's got his digital ID. You can't get rid of digital ID just by getting rid of Keir Starmer, folks. A little bit of UK politics over there.
King Charles announces the mark of the beast.
Love watching Keir Starmer get what's owed to him, but King Charles comes out and says, "You think you're getting rid of the beast system by getting rid of Keir Starmer? No. We're doing digital ID, baby, no matter what."
Alex Jones posted an hour ago video. King Charles announces mark of the beast to be implemented UK wide.
Yeah.
Come on.
Very original.
Come on, Alex.
Very original. I mean, he might not be wrong, but
he might not be wrong, but okay. I mean, there's all right, whatever. I guess he can do whatever he wants now because he's not on InfoWars anymore, so he can say whatever he wants to say.
Yeah, because he was so restrained back when he was on InfoWars. All right, let's get to some of the stories we got here. It's very interesting. Of course, we've had a lot of distractions in the past couple months, from the Epstein files to the Iran war to the UFOs, and it's been it's been a little contentious for all sorts of people who are putting in the work kind of beneath the surface to try to get some answers and some justice for the COVID era behavior of various government people. And, it's one of those things that you're either really interested in it or you're still burnt out. Like there is an impulse that I found with a lot of people, and maybe they're sort of skeptic, fringe people, maybe they're regular people, whatever. But there is quite the divide on those who have any interest in sort of COVID justice and not, but because of the timing of the hantavirus phenomenon, I suppose, some very interesting timing on updates here. And of course, as you'd expect, the CIA, they're getting a lot of the attention.
Yeah. And this is tied with the greater revelation or revealing of hidden things, the trend that we've been seeing here. But this has to do with the CIA.
Well,
Just a deep cut CIA joke there for you people. New York Post headline: CIA whistleblower James Edman reveals Anthony Fauci influenced COVID origins intel probe as part of a lab leak cover-up. A CIA whistleblower appeared publicly for the first time Wednesday to testify to a Senate panel that Dr. Anthony Fauci improperly, quote, influenced intelligence analysis about the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic to downplay findings that it most likely resulted from a laboratory accident in China. Man, talk about a time machine here. You know, the specificity of the parties involved, because of course there's all sorts, a long list of gripes that anybody could bring up about Anthony Fauci or the various injustices at the time. But the hiding of the lab leak theory, and specifically Anthony Fauci's participation, let's say, in intelligence reports, in CIA activities, was a very interesting detail. You know, the list of times that he like snuck in the back door at the Pentagon, the list, this kind of stuff. It's a very specific, I guess, genre of COVID answers people are looking for. But let's see. Special Operations Officer James Edman III delivered his testimony about the wide-ranging cover-up after being subpoenaed by the Senate Homeland Security Committee and against his own agency's wishes. So CIA not very happy. Quote, Dr. Fauci's role in the cover-up was intentional, Edman testified, saying the then director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, NIAID, meddled in COVID origins analyses by providing, quote, a conflicted list of curated subject matter experts, public health officials, and scientists to the U.S. intelligence community. You know, there's an aspect of kind of letting the CIA off the hook a bit here. You know, Fauci's orchestration of coordinating what the CIA could and couldn't know. So interesting sort of subtlety there. Those included several scientists who joined a February 2020 teleconference that ultimately produced a widely discredited scientific paper, quote, the proximal origin of SARS-CoV-2, downplaying the lab leak theory. That's crazy. Calling it widely discredited scientific paper, which is true, but it used to be the gold standard of facts of COVID. As a result, Edman noted, quote, the CIA and DNI analytic managers responsible for examining the origin of COVID made decisions inconsistent with the conclusions of subject matter experts and analytical tradecraft, consistently favoring the theory of zoonosis or natural origin. Edman, who has served at the CIA since 2013, has been reviewing the IC's handling of its COVID origins probe as part of Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard's Directors Initiative Group, DIG, from March 2025 to April 2026. He testified that Fauci twice inserted himself into IC deliberations, that's intelligence community deliberations, about the outbreak of SARS-CoV-2, once on February 3rd, 2020, and again on June 4th, 2021, to stoke natural origins narrative. February 3rd, 2020, that's like over a month before lockdowns even started.
I think we heard from Fauci responding to this.
You do not know what you are talking about.
Yeah, that's about as good as it gets from him. So this is like a month and a couple days before lockdowns even started. So from the very beginning, he didn't come in later to try to do this or that. From the very beginning, he comes in giving basically false testimony to the intelligence community.
Wasn't Fauci also the one? I mean, my mind is being. My files from back in those days are starting to pop up. Was it Fauci that there's like footage of him maybe a year before saying like, oh, something's coming. Something big is coming. You know?
Oh, yeah. He had been saying that for years. Back when him and sort of Bill Microsoft, what's his name? Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Yes, the sort of global like vaccine initiative thing. They've been warning about a pandemic. He said specifically when Trump, I think it was when Trump took office.
That's right. Something bad's gonna happen.
He says a pandemic is gonna hit in this next administration. You know, it's just pretty specific. But hey, apparently he's incredibly influential in the CIA. So if anybody would know, he would.
Science is truth.
In a June 2021 email exchange, Erdman recounted how the leader of a 90-day IC review of COVID origins dismissed concerns from a senior analyst about Fauci's decision to, quote, inject himself into the process.
I love that language.
Yeah.
Like a double entendre there.
Right, into the process as a subject matter expert. The CIA officer noted that NIAID director had publicly denied having expertise on coronaviruses while privately attempting to steer the investigation. In 2023, another CIA assessment also refused to state one way or another whether the coronavirus pandemic originated in a lab leak or spilled over naturally from animals to humans. Funny enough, this 2023 report, this was when CIA admitted that it's possible it could have come from the lab.
This was like the beginning when like the little corner of the curtain started to lift with all this stuff. I
it was a huge win. We all considered it a huge win when the CIA changed their assessment to, okay, maybe it's not impossible that it came from a lab. And we're like, yeah. Erdman denied reports, however, that some analysts were bribed to alter those findings. Quote, 6 of the 7 technical experts say, yep, we still think it's a lab leak. He characterized the deliberations, and they were sticking to their guns. Management changed the analytic line. The 2023 assessment stated, quote, we may never precisely know the origins of SARS-CoV-2.
I remember that.
Quote, precisely, this is a quote, precisely is not a term analysts use, Erdman clarified Wednesday. Quote, they use words like low confidence, medium confidence. Precisely is a word you use when you want to deliberately end discussion. Those analysts received exceptional performance awards of roughly $1,500 each, the witness said, but not in direct exchange for the assessment's findings. Sure, of course.
$1,500.
Quote, there were no bribes, Erdman emphasized. I remember this bribe story too.
Yeah.
And yes, of course. I mean, this is the zigzagging of logic you can take. Yes, they did get paid $1,500 each, but not
officially
not in exchange for their findings. It was because of their findings, but not in exchange for their findings. He also accused the IC of withholding as many as 2,000 pages of classified material on COVID origins in violation of a 2023 law signed by former President Joe Biden, ordering disclosures to the American public. While conducting the review of Gabber's office, Erdman alleged that the CIA, quote, illegally monitored the phones and computers of DIG personnel as well as other whistleblowers. This is when the story takes a little bit of a turn. They sort of bury the lead in here. Quote, the CIA refused to provide information necessary to understand why analytic standards at the CIA were violated, he said. Quote, these were Americans being spied on illegally while executing duties directed by the president and under the authority of the Director of National Intelligence. Erdman came forward, quote, at great personal risk because, quote, the truth was being buried. Senator Rand Paul said Wednesday of the, quote, decorated officer with decades of intelligence and national security experience. As the hearing concluded, a CIA spokeswoman blasted Paul's committee for having engaged in, quote, political theater by compelling Erdman's testimony, given that the agency last year assessed a lab leak as the most likely explanation for the COVID pandemic. Last year, that's interesting. I don't remember hearing another.
Who is this? Who's this person that blasted Paul?
They do give her name here in a moment. Quote,
Liz Lyons?
The committee acted in bad faith by subpoenaing an agency officer for testimony today without notifying CIA. Oh, bad faith. They didn't tell us that they were subpoenaing. Despite having already obtained closed-door testimony from the individual previously, the CIA spokeswoman, Liz Lyons. That name is familiar. I wonder why. Quote, the witness testifying today is not appearing as a whistleblower in pursuit of the truth, but instead in response to the subpoena issued by Chairman Paul, she added. Quote, this proceeding amounts to nothing more than dishonest political theater masquerading as congressional hearing, as the CIA has already assessed COVID-19 most likely originated from a lab leak, and efforts to undermine it, that conclusion are disingenuous. Sounds like the CIA was in trouble last year and was trying to get ahead of all this. Senator Ron Johnson, who has also called for a high-level congressional probe of intelligence agencies regarding COVID, publicly demanded an apology from CIA Director John Ratcliffe after reading the statement aloud during the hearing. So it kind of goes from this, "Ooh, Dr. Fauci, he tricked the CIA." You know, at the beginning of it, the testimony is really this guy kind of, in a way, giving the CIA a bit of an out, right? He's saying,
Of course,
Fauci influenced us. Fauci lied to us. Fauci messed with our reports. And so that's why we came to it. And then the CIA in the meeting is kind of protesting too much a little bit, kind of giving this weird vibe of guiltiness that doesn't quite line up with the testimony.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's multiple levels here. Obviously, at the narrative level for the specifically the COVID stuff, you know, there's a sense of, hey, we were right once again. You know, I mean, my initial reaction seeing this was, I saw Rand Paul post on it. You know, it was the day before. He said CIA scientists concluded that COVID came from a lab leak. Then someone scribbled out their conclusions at 2 a.m. and changed the report. Tomorrow, a whistleblower testifies. So, you know, it was kind of like, all right, Rand Paul's pushing back against this. You know, Fauci's statute of limitations just expired, even though I guess Biden technically dismissed him. But then, of course, the pardon may have been I don't know, not exactly conclusive because Joe Biden used the auto pay. I mean, it just goes down this rabbit trail. But as far as the narrative goes, it's like, okay, we all know now that it was, I mean, everybody already knew that it was a lab leak, but now we're kind of seeing the testifying of that. So we're thinking, okay, great. My initial reaction was, okay, a CIA scientist is going to go under oath and say all this. Great. Thank you. Why did it take a CIA scientist to say this in a hearing when, you know, your friends Basil and Gons basically showed the documentation to prove that this was probably the case, with like receipts from nature.com and these other articles from 2015 saying that the NIH funded these laboratories in Wuhan for gain of function research for coronavirus. So, you know, I mean, I don't know. We're just crazy people that saw this stuff in March 2020, but here we are in 2026. We need a CIA scientist to testify under oath to get the truth out there.
To be precise, I don't think he's a CIA scientist, but he's someone who.
Well, this is what Rand Paul says. Okay. Rand Paul called him a CIA scientist. So I guess he's talking about, maybe he's talking about a CIA scientist, not necessarily Edman himself.
Yeah. Well, like you say, because again, all the information is stuff we already know. And even the CIA themselves, they say, you know, they say, oh, we changed our report last year, which would have been 2025, which would have been after this entire investigation by Tulsi Gabbard. So obviously they just updated their analysis quietly. It didn't tell anybody because the investigation was going on. But you have this weird, almost like this war going on between CIA, the policymakers, and Fauci himself, where it's kind of this like bar brawl, right? Everybody's kind of swinging at each other, where whether he's a whistleblower or he was subpoenaed and compelled, I mean, that's an interesting sort of argument they're having, because they're calling him a whistleblower, and then the CIA is saying he's not a whistleblower, you made him come here. So it's like, are you defending him? What exactly are you doing here?
Yeah. So we brought up limited hangout earlier, and I suppose it's a concept that's becoming more well understood in the public nowadays. I believe, doesn't someone have a podcast called Limited Hangout?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the idea has been floating around out there, but basically it comes from a phrase that was suggested specifically by Officer Victor Marchetti. And this was, I'll show the documentation here. This is law.justia.com. And it is for Edward Hunt Jr. Plaintiff Appeal versus Liberty Lobby. This is back in 1983. I was a wee young lad, little baby Gons running around when this happened. But it says here in the document, a limited hangout is spy jargon for a favorite and frequently used gimmick of the clandestine professionals. When their veil of secrecy is shredded and they can no longer rely on a phony cover story to misinform the public, they resort to admitting, sometimes even volunteering, some of the truth while still managing to withhold the key and damaging facts in the case. The public, however, is usually so intrigued by the new information that it never thinks to pursue the matter further.
Right.
So it's this idea that, hey, look, they're onto us, give them something to latch onto. Don't give them everything. Don't give them the home run, but, you know, give them enough so they can make content and they can talk about it or whatever. And that's sort of the idea here, where a CIA whistleblower comes out. And of course, he's got authority. He's a CIA guy. He's been there since 2013. He's definitely knows what's going on. He's telling the truth. He's testifying under oath. And of course, as you said, you know, yes, there are some zingers, but there's also a little escape hatch that's not at the front of the story for the CIA. And, you know, for this Liz Lyons lady,
Yeah, well, that's
to be
the
like,
weird-
hey, we didn't know about this, and start to accuse. I mean, that could be part of the play here.
Yeah,
you know, like, make
exactly.
it
It's a
seem
weird
like-
brawl for no reason, kind of distracting. It's like, I thought this was about Fauci. Now it's about the CIA is mad at the commission for saying that this. It's just the weird brawl at the end kind of divides up the different conclusions that people will get to as to who even is even mad at who in this situation.
Right. It doesn't, it almost doesn't matter. Now, here's a clip. It's about 2 minutes, 22 seconds of Mr. Edman III, the CIA whistleblower, talking about this whole situation. But again, you know, I also think that these hearings, and we've heard it before from politicians too, they're meant to have clips like this, these like 2-minute zingers that'll get everyone really excited. So here it is.
Thank you for the complimentary introduction, and I appreciate the committee's dedication to transparency and accountability. I am a career CIA operations officer, and as you mentioned, I was on joint duty assignment at the Office of Director National Intelligence Directors Initiatives Group, or the DIG, between March 2025 and April 2026. I was responsible for leading the DIG's investigation into COVID origins, anomalous health incidents, and unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Which, okay, so by the way, the next part of this is the UFO stuff, but it ties into all the conspiracies, the JFK and the MK Ultra. So it's like one big transparency project by the CIA and the government.
I'm here today to discuss the COVID cover-up, the national security implications associated with the DIG's investigative findings, and CIA refusal to comply with lawful oversight, as well as how we remedy these problems. Intelligence community leaders and senior analysts downplayed the possibility that the COVID pandemic originated as a result of a lab incident. Motives are difficult to define given the scope of the DIG's review. Intentional or not, the IC's actions resulted in a cover-up, wasted resources, and a failure to properly inform policymakers. Public health policy would have been very different had the American public been made aware that a virus from a lab in China was going to serve as the foundation for an emergency use authorization mRNA products being mandated by the former administration.
Zinger.
Got him. Dr. Fauci's role in the cover-up was intentional. Dr. Fauci influenced the analytical process and findings by leveraging his position to ensure the IC consulted with a conflicted list of curated subject matter experts, public health officials, and scientists. This included some of the authors of the paper, The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2, and other public health experts who have been in his orbit for the last 20 plus years.
All right. So there you go. I mean, is anything going to happen to Fauci? Probably not. Is anybody, but you know, there's another angle to this that I just realized was that Trump is in China. To throw Fauci and part of the intelligence community, the American intelligence community, under the bus at this time might be very strategic in showing up to China with, all these CEOs and Elon Musk and all these people, because of course, the narrative had long been that, hey, China started this, or, they're allowing this to
Right,
happen
and
or
it's
whatever it
been a
might be.
sticking point for Xi Jinping before, like an explicit sticking point between Xi Jinping and Trump was the origins of COVID.
Right.
He did not like that they were insisting that it leaked from the lab because it made China look bad and all these things. So yeah, the timing of this might, very clearly line up with Trump's little deal-making mission with all the CEOs over there in China.
Yeah.
And it was mentioned in the article kind of briefly, where the CIA kind of got caught spying on Tulsi Gabbard and
Right.
this DIG, the DIG group, right? This
Yes.
DIG was the group last year from March 2025 to last month, April 2026. This is why the CIA would have quietly come out and changed their assessment because of this DIG group. And it's mentioned right here that this DIG group, including Tulsi herself, were being spied on by the CIA. Now, like currently, this is not
right.
like back in COVID times. At the same time, we have this story from New York Post. DNI Tulsi Gabbard probes U.S. funding to more than 120 biolabs abroad. Uh-oh, you can't do that.
Wait a minute, that's a conspiracy theory. The Ukraine biolabs, that's a conspiracy theory. You can't talk about that. That's not
to talk about COVID origins. It's another thing to talk about Ukrainian biolabs, okay? Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard is investigating more than 120 biological laboratories abroad that were funded by U.S. taxpayer dollars for decades as part of an effort to end potentially risky experiments with viruses pursuant to President Trump's executive order on so-called gain-of-function research. Gabbard told the Post Monday in a statement that her team is going to identify where these labs are, what pathogens they contain, and what research is being conducted to end dangerous gain-of-function research that threatens the health and well-being of the American people in the world. Quote, the COVID-19 pandemic revealed the catastrophic global impact research on dangerous pathogens and biolabs can have, the spy chief also said. Quote, yet despite these obvious dangers, politicians, so-called health professionals like Dr. Fauci and entities within the Biden administration's national security team lied to the American people about the existence of these U.S.-funded and supported biolabs and threatened those who attempted to expose the truth. Under new guidance from Gabbard, the U.S. intelligence community will review research at all U.S.-funded biolabs, which could include facilities engaged in gain-of-function experiments that could increase transmissibility of viruses, as well as work for defensive purposes against dangerous pathogens. Office of the Director of National Intelligence officials noted that the foreign labs extend into more than 30 countries, and several had received funding in the past through a Department of Defense program that sought to dispose of weapons of mass destruction after the end of the Cold War. More than 40 of the biolabs under review are located in Ukraine. I remember the day that the research was put out that that the Ukraine biolab thing was a thing, right? And this was before the Ukraine war, but because it sort of predated the invasion of Ukraine. In fact, at the time, again, which was a time where conspiracy theories were not so broadly looked upon or appreciated as they are now, just a few years later. But at the time, the research comes out about the biolabs in Ukraine. The Hunter Biden thing was a bit
Burisma, the whole deal, yeah.
Burisma, the whole thing, right? But it was before Russia invaded. And so after the Russia invasion, that gave this entire new angle to, who knows, could be Russian propaganda, but the story was there that, Putin, one of his goals was to go in and take out these biolabs or whatever. Who knows if that's true or not. But it was just weird to think that the clues that come along before they even really hold the sort of weight they eventually will. Another reason why doing this show so often is so rewarding, because even the most random of little story or piece of research has the potential to pop back up in the most important ways.
And we can play jingles like this one.
Fight for Ukraine, new world order.
More than 40 of the biolabs under review are located in Ukraine and could, quote, be at risk of compromise due to Russia's war, ODNI officials noted. The research, which is part of the Defense Department's Cooperative Threat Reduction Program, is aimed at studying pathogens to prevent future outbreaks and enhancing biosecurity for the U.S. Critics have argued that lax oversight of the research funding, which often flows through U.S. agencies to grantees and subawardees, prevents Americans from knowing whether potentially dangerous experiments are being conducted. That's, you get their Eco Health Alliance, money trail, things like that. Clinical trials currently conducted at biolabs are now, quote, raising significant ethical, financial, and security concerns, ODNI officials said. The Biden administration denied the existence of U.S.-owned or U.S.-operated chemical or biological laboratories in Ukraine. End quote.
They're not in Ukraine. They're in Los Angeles and San Francisco and Nevada. They're all on U.S. soil, okay?
Dismissing the claims as Chinese and Russian propaganda. In a March 9th, 2022 statement, the month after Kremlin forces invaded, and they're calling this the month after Russian forces invaded, but this was, what was it? The 22nd, February 23rd is, I think, the day that they went in.
So it's like a week.
Like a couple of weeks, right? So yeah, this biolab thing was already out there before the war started, and it was so bizarrely connected that the Biden administration had to come out and respond basically immediately when the war started, because this foundation had already been laid. The clarification came in response to congressional testimony from Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs Victoria Nuland.
Hey, some old names.
Let me read that again. We just read about the Biden administration denying the existence of the labs in Ukraine, basically calling it Chinese Russian propaganda the second Russia invades. And the clarification, okay, we need some clarification. The clarification came in response to congressional testimony from Victoria Nuland, the angel of death herself, who was directly involved in the Ukraine war, not the 2002 Ukraine war, the 2014 Ukraine war. Victoria Nuland, perhaps being single-handedly the most responsible for putting Zelensky in charge and sort of controlling the U.S. control over Ukraine for the past 10 years before the war even started.
You get a cookie. You get a cookie. She was handing out cookies in Ukraine.
Famously handing out cookies on the streets of Ukraine after the 2014 coup that we did in Ukraine. So anyways, what perfect person to come in and clarify about biolabs in Ukraine. Quote, Ukraine has biological research facilities, which in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian troops, Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. Under Trump, ODNI officials said the hasty denials were part of an information resilience strategy that sought to shape the public narrative to mitigate the counter-foreign malign influence while downplaying U.S. ties to the research. So there's just propaganda.
There's many layers of propaganda going on here.
Again, all CIA. This is all CIA. Last May, Trump signed an executive action to ban all federal funding for the gain-of-function research in China, Iran, or other nations that don't exercise proper oversight, claiming that SARS-CoV-2 had proved dangerous pathogens, quote, can leak out innocently, stupidly, incompetently, but innocently and half destroy the world. This story being reported just days after the hantavirus.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the hantavirus hype in general seems to have been a little palate, like a teaser, a little what's the word I'm looking for? Appetizer for this week's stuff on unleashing the truth about the whole COVID pandemic. Get people kind of thinking about the pandemic days again, and then hey, boom, let's launch this mission of quote unquote justice and transparency. Even though that's probably not what we're going to get eventually anyway. But yeah,
Or
continue.
limited hangout, right?
Limited hangout, exactly. Yeah.
Tell the people just enough to where they feel satisfied and they don't ask any further questions.
Yeah.
And you can stop me if you want. They got a few more paragraphs here. It is a great summary of like a lot of stuff that I think people forgot. The Defense Department's watchdog had previously been unable to determine how many possible enhanced potential pandemic pathogens were being researched in China or other nations. So they're like, yeah, we don't know how many COVIDs exist out there, despite more than $104 billion being spent.
1.4 billion. 1.4 billion.
Yeah, okay. $1.4 billion spent on such experiments outside the US between, again, weird 2014 Victoria Nuland's Cookie Day in Ukraine, 2014 and 2023. And, they're, again, limited hangout. They're kind of mentioning it here, but they're not saying it outright, that the direct connection, not just narratively, but like historical connection between the CIA's coup of Ukraine in 2014 being intricately tied to this program of funding biolabs to do gain of function research that ends up in COVID happening sequentially right before the Ukraine invasion by Russia, right? So it's one of these things that if you, it's easy to forget just how directly related all these things are, sort of in their historicity, but also in the players, the exact players making the whole thing happen. And it makes you realize, yeah, of course we did episodes about, a pandemic with a vaccine that did all this in 2012, because not only was it probably in the planned, but it was actively in the works. Between 2014 and 2021, U.S. funded experiments on bat coronaviruses at the now infamous Wuhan Institute of Virology were also found by the National Institutes of Health, NIH, to have violated grant terms by making the viruses 10,000 times more infectious, though officials have denied that the research caused the COVID-19 pandemic. And it goes on. They give more examples. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good.
The declassification of this discovery shows how little oversight this work had under President Trump's leadership. DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, and the entire cabinet are righting these historic wrongs and delivering justice for our war fighters and the ones they protect. The era of lies and betrayal is over. This is Hegseth saying this. Don't worry. The era of lies and betrayal, they're over, people. We're fine. Everything's good.
Yeah. I mean, this also aligns so much with the keyword of transparency that we identified here a couple years ago, maybe more than that, maybe like 4 years ago, that they're going to go into this era of transparency. And of course, the World Economic Forum for the last 3 or 4 years talking about how do we regain the trust of the public. Well, this is a great way to do it. Start admitting some things that people already know, like the people that did the research, they already knew it. They, go ahead and affirm them. And then, of course, while everybody that would figure out the nefarious things going on now are celebrating, I'm sure more nefarious things are going on. So, it's always about what's not being researched at the moment. It's always after the fact that we all get to look at it, talk about it, think about it, and be affirmed by a CIA whistleblower. I'm so glad, Basil, that our work was just affirmed by a CIA whistleblower.
That's all I've ever wanted.
Great day to be.
All I ever wanted was to be affirmed by the CIA.
Great day to be a Canarian.
At the same time,
yes.
Were you going to play the clip, or can we move on to the next topic?
The Edman clip of him discussing the MK Ultra and what was the other thing? It was MK Ultra.
In the season of limited hangout, right?
Yes,
and this is something that everybody is really kind of grappling with on a regular basis. A good example is of Epstein, right? They let out just enough to keep everybody on top of it. Then they started pulling documents back. Same with the UFOs, right? They're putting out just enough to kind of keep the ball rolling. But they're, at least so far, not giving satisfactory answers. Well, we have some, this seems to be a whole campaign of this sort of thing. And here's another sort of vector of this project.
The CIA refused to provide information necessary to understand why analytical standards at the CIA were violated. The CIA illegally monitored the computer and phone usage of DIG personnel, their investigations, and contact with whistleblowers. These were Americans being spied upon illegally while executing duties directed by the president and under the authority of the Director of National Intelligence. One CIA contractor assisting with the DIG's investigation into the events that transpired between 2022 and 2023 was fired by the CIA one day after meeting with the DIG. When the DIG ceased operations, the CIA also took back 40 boxes of JFK files and MK Ultra files being processed for declassification by DNI Gabbard.
Okay, so this is another little can of worms that James Edman III threw out there, and it has to do with obviously the JFK files, which again, another topic where the government took, what, 50, 60 years to release the documentation and nothing, right? But also, I think more interestingly for us is the mind control, the MK Ultra files.
Mind controlled weapons.
We got jingles for everything, Basil. Like this.
Which famously, Daily Mail just came out with all the, at least a sort of 101 for Daily Mail readers about MK Ultra.
Great. I'm so happy that they're informing the public about this information. Of course, the head of the task force of transparency, I don't know if that's actually what it's called, but this is Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who's been very vocal about the UFO files being released. She's also the one that tweeted out or posted, read the Book of Enoch, and she's posting pictures of, biblical angels and Ophimine and stuff like that. So that's her. She says, our task force hearing on MK Ultra will be rescheduled for a later date. We were able to confirm one witness, but our other 3 witnesses, rightfully so, were hesitant to testify as they have legitimate concerns. We will announce a new date soon and are looking forward to investigating this topic. So about a month ago, Anna Paulina Luna announced that they are doing an investigation, a hearing on MK Ultra, and she's gonna bring victims in to testify, and we're gonna blow this whole mind control issue wide open. And this connects with the Havana syndrome type stuff. I'm assuming
all the gate program talk.
Gate program stuff is in there too. The voice to skull technology might get brought up. Certainly some experiments that is out in the public due to a lot of the FOIA requests and stuff over the years of putting LSD in the town's water. I mean, this stuff is pretty widely known at this point, but I think more concerning recent targeted individuals is what is often used as the phrase. And, again, I've mentioned it before on the show, Basil, but, I think we've gotten emails from people who claim that they're being targeted. Right. And they're saying, hey, nobody believes me, and, this kind of thing. But as podcasters, I mean, we can pray for them. What are we supposed to do? We can't help these people. Put on a tinfoil hat and go hide in a bunker somewhere. I mean, what can we do to help them truly, other than to encourage them and to pray for them? But so this is interesting that the hearing was supposed to happen this week, and now, according to Representative Luna, it's being delayed. So this will be another topic of inquiry when it comes to the transparency project that the CIA and the government is technically going under, or at least trying to present as some kind of.
And interestingly enough, 40 boxes of files being gone through by Tulsi Gabbard and her office. CIA swoops in and takes 40 boxes back.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's great. Tim Burchett, of course, he's also been on the circuit there with this whole transparency thing. He actually, let me just mention this part right here. So Representative Luna, again, earlier today, said the CIA has 24 hours to return the documents to Tulsi Gabbard's office, or else I will make a motion to issue a subpoena. These documents have been requested by Congress, and she tagged D&I Gabbard and at CIA director. So there you go. She's making threats. She's making legal threats. And then on top of that, you had Tim Burchett quote tweet Representative Luna. And Tim Burchett makes a good point. He says the CIA lied about MK Ultra existing. They were sued and were forced to admit it, but say they aren't doing it now. Which lie do you believe? Subpoena and preserve these documents now. So again, it's not about the historical accounts. The historical accounts are public. They know about it, or the public, or at least people paying attention know that it's public. It's what's been happening now, which I think is an appropriate question to ask. And for what purposes, and who were targeted and why. And again, is there going to be any justice that comes out of this? I don't know, but there's, if we're not going to get justice for victims of child trafficking, I would assume that, targeted individuals of electronic abuse and things like that, mind control abuse even, are not going to necessarily receive any kind of justice this side of heaven here. But interestingly enough, this is part of, I think, like we've been talking about, this limited hangout. Let people get a little flavor of justice. Not real justice, just kind of a flavor or a tease of justice, because ultimately there isn't going to be any worldly justice until the return of Christ. And, if you don't believe in God, this is a good reason to believe in God, that there is an ultimate justice at the end of the road here. It's not just evil, hate, abuse and all this kind of stuff, and then you die. There's a lot more to it. There's this cosmic level justice that we believe, this great hope that transcends all understanding. So I think nothing will come out of this, but also
I think we're pretty clear. Yeah, what we consider as justice, is not necessarily what the plan is. My bigger question is, okay, for what purpose? What's the setup? There's some setup to this new, whatever world order, the Trump world order, that requires the sort of complete destruction of the lies, the narrative,
legacy world order, the legacy order. The legacy system, if you will.
And it may have nothing to do with these actual topics at all. You could see in the sort of House of Cards, Game of Thrones sense, we think this is all about MK Ultra and JFK files, the CIA, but it could literally just be a way to tickle Xi Jinping's fancy so he makes a better economic deal with Trump.
Very true. Right now. Of course, there's that. It could be as simple as that. There's also, if we're thinking about this clearly, oh, you guys don't want to be victims of MK Ultra electronic mind control weapons and stuff like that. Let's just make sure that you guys are safe. Okay, we're going to do 24/7 monitoring of your biology, every moment of the day. Just make sure that there's nothing nefarious going on. We need to digitally track you just for your safety. There's a little bit of privacy that gets lost, but it's for your own good. So there's this other side of it where the result of something like this can be very invasive as sort of the solution that gets presented. And also there's a through line here with all of these topics, Baz. I've noticed, I'm trying to make a Venn diagram. At first it was just 2 circles, but then I realized there's 3 or 4 circles, and then it gets really complicated because, in a Venn diagram, you want to focus on the section of the circles that all overlap. But then when you have more than 2 circles overlapping, you create these other sub circles of partial overlaps, and, it just gets confusing. But the idea being, so we're looking at the Epstein files, okay? And the weirdest of it being the topic of genetic preservation for Epstein, or, enhancement in some circumstances. Then there's the UFO topic, which brings up the Nephilim, which has been pushed a lot in the public, which has this whole genetic corruption narrative side to it. You bring up the vaccines and COVID and all this, and that has to do with the general public and their genetic profile, and, a jab to protect us and so forth. And of course with MK Ultra, our mind control stuff. The through line, the commonality with all of it seems to be this idea of Nephilim or corrupt, like a physical corruption. The all flesh had become corrupt, it said in Genesis 6. And something similar might happen in our day, as Jesus warned, right? All flesh would be destroyed. If there's no intervention, if God doesn't intervene in the end, all flesh would be destroyed. And so it seems like, this transparency, all this stuff is going on, but ultimately it's pushing for the public awareness of, hey, we need these fixes because there's a threat out there and you need protection, and we're going to protect you. First, we're going to expose the problem, and then we will provide the product, problem, reaction, solution. So the Nephilim topic seems to be at the heart of all of it, Basil. I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy to think that there's a through line there. But again, if there was a Venn diagram, I would say that the overlapping commonality with all of it is the Nephilim topic, specifically this corruption of creation in general, not just biology, but all creation. So, and of course, the MK Ultra mind control aspect ties to the UFO topic. If you remember the former Skunk Works, Lockheed Martin, Ben Rich, his quotes suggesting that the UFOs, how do you control the UFOs? How do you drive them? Well, what did he say? Like, how do psychics, I can't remember the exact quote, something about psychics. How do they, how do they control your mind, or how do they operate, or something like that? And it was some telekinesis type thing. So it has to do with the human mind directly being tapped into these craft, and somehow that quote unquote consciousness powers the UFO craft. So again, it gets into some pretty esoteric areas, but there might be something there in terms of the overlap. So,
there's certainly some overlap, because speaking of threats, there's kind of a great in this limited Hangout campaign. We've got overlapping threats with overlapping narratives here. A great one coming from our friends over at the Daily Mail, making sure that the masses
we should just be called the Daily Mail Show,
all the most bizarre and fringe conspiracy theory topics. Daily Mail: CIA psychic spy issued wild kill shot apocalypse warning before death. A quote, psychic spy who once worked for the CIA issued one last vision before his recent death, warning that a devastating solar catastrophe known as the kill shot could soon plunge Earth into chaos. Retired Major Ed Dames, one of the most recognizable figures tied to the U.S. government's secret remote viewing experiments during the Cold War, claimed that humanity was entering the beginning stages of the event. Dames, who died in March at the age of 76, talk about the list of dead scientists or something, Dames, who died this March at the age of 76, believed enormous blasts from the sun would eventually strike Earth with such force that millions could die instantly as power grids failed, communication systems collapsed, and global panic spiraled into violence and disease.
It sounds like some of the judgments in the book of Revelation, by the way,
He warned the kill shot sequence may begin during the current solar maximum, a volatile period of heightened solar activity expected to last through the end of 2026. So that's very, what was the guy's name? Daniel, the Sun Weatherman. Sun Weatherman is sort of credited, at least on X, for being the one bringing attention to the dangers of the solar maximum. And part of that theory was, the fact that the billionaires and the elites have been secretly building their bunkers and not telling anybody to worry about the sun exploding. But here we've got the psychic spy himself telling us at least
the CIA psychic spy.
That's right, CIA secret psychic spy. In his final recorded interview, Dames linked. I love how Daily Mail talks about the remote viewing experiments in the Cold War just as like fact. They don't even feel the impulse to like try to convince anybody of the psychic experiments and remote viewing that was done.
It's just presupposed that everyone knows psychic spies are real now. Come on.
We're at the point where they can just presuppose these things without having to explain it to their audience. In his final recorded interview, Dames linked the looming catastrophe to heightened solar activity and the appearance of a mysterious comet moving through the inner solar system.
Oh, Three-Eye Atlas? Huh.
He warned that society would rapidly unravel once infrastructure failed, telling listeners that governments would be unable to save their populations from the aftermath. Quote, "You wake up and there's no power, there's no water, there's no gasoline. It's going to be a bad nightmare scenario," Dames said in an October 2025 interview released last month.
Oh, they waited. Thank goodness
Recorded
they
in
waited.
October, released in April. Very interesting.
Okay, great.
Quote, "That's what you're going to be confronted with. The government is not going to help you." While Dames built a devoted following, his predictions were frequently criticized because many of his specific timelines failed to materialize. Over the years, he repeatedly claimed the kill shot was imminent, but previous predicted dates passed without incident. Yeah, it's tough out there for date setters.
Yeah, the date setters really got a hard job out there. Yeah.
Skeptics have long argued that remote viewing itself has never been scientifically validated under controlled conditions, despite decades of government-funded experimentation. Still, in his final interview with the Michael Deacon program last year, Dames insisted the warning signs were finally appearing. The former Army intelligence officer spent decades promoting the chilling prediction, which he said he first encountered while participating in classified psychic espionage programs tied to Project Stargate.
Yay.
Project Stargate was a top-secret U.S. intelligence program for the 1970s to 1995, which investigated psychic phenomena, specifically remote viewing, the ability to gather intelligence on distant or hidden targets using clairvoyance. And of course, we did a kind of recent episode now on Project Stargate and how that's been sort of
rebranded with the AI topic.
Right. They took the name for the AI project. He pointed specifically to solar cycle 25, the current period of heightened solar activity, which scientists say has produced unusually strong solar storms and sunspot activity. Dames said, quote, "Right now we're at the beginning of the solar cycle, 25 solar max. Solar max should last for about 2 years, and the sun's unprecedented stuff. There are more solar spots than there have been in the last 20-something years." And they go on explaining more of his predictions there. Was there anything specific you wanted to cover in here?
No, not really. But I will say, I wonder if the most common victim of true MK Ultra mind control type of devices and technologies and targeting is not necessarily the general public, but it is in fact the very people within the CIA.
Totally.
And I don't know that there's going to be any conversations about that, but it just seems like that would make sense. You give them whatever they need to experience, either, a moment with God or aliens or channeling or whatever type of spiritual experience is necessary to then go out there and be a public voice to share the message or warn the people or whatever it might be. And then you got the credibility of being ex-CIA. You'll get on podcasts. You may start your own podcasts. And, you can really get the message out there. So I can see that being a trajectory that people don't consider enough. So,
yeah,
interesting. But just one last thing here before we get out of here. I gotta scooch on out of here. Got places to be.
There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are.
Earthquake in Japan.
Okay, so Japan is jumping on the UFO disclosure train, Basil. And the government of Japan have come out and said that they're going to release some UAP footage around Japan, specifically Fukushima, during that whole meltdown. I mean, we heard about all the UFO footage in the conspiracy circles, on Reddit and 4chan and stuff like that, the footage and whatnot. But it's actually going to be released allegedly, and in terms of limited hangout, this again, if you want a world government, you need the world to kind of follow suit with the Transparency Project. And here we go. I thought this was so funny. So this is Nico Nico News. Okay, Nico Nico means smile in Japanese. Nico 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 shite. So Nico Nico News said Chief Cabinet Secretary Kihara confirms U.S. released UAP footage around Japan regarding the unidentified anomalous phenomena materials released by the U.S. Department of Defense. Chief Cabinet Secretary Kihara mentioned, this is, I guess there's more to it here, mentioned at today's press conference that, quote, I have confirmed the footage on the Japanese government, the information disclosure. He stated that it would be judged on a case-by-case basis while taking security considerations into account. So they are planning to at least discuss case by case to release it. And of course, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, we will be in touch at Japan. Woo! Nippon.
He's on the job.
Nippon #1. Japanese Times, Tokyo analyzing Pentagon UFO file trove with sightings near Japan. Just reporting on the same story here. So yeah, of course, Japan would be the first ones to follow suit, and give everybody a taste of the truth. The truth is out there, Basil. The truth is out there.
Yeah, well, considering their economic situation and how important the bond yields in Japan are to the American economy, I'm not going to rule out these things being connected.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go.
Right on. Well, there you go, folks. That's just about what we got for today. Thank you to all of our producers who make the show happen. We couldn't do it without you. Highly recommend you go over to Canary Cry, supply-drop.com. Go check it out. We got some great stuff coming out. And if you want to start stacking gold with all the supply droppers, that's a great way to do it. Just a couple of weeks for the deadline for the next one going out. Of course, big shout out to all of our financial producers. I did not see. Oh, you know what? I see. Okay. I'm over on the text message. I'm seeing here Nomen Prunte sent us a SpeakPipe. We got to make sure to put that on the list for Monday. I see this, Nomen Prunte. Thank you. But if you want to get on the Canary Cry text message alert system, which you should, just get a little text from me before we go live. It's fun. And you can text me back at that number. Tell me anything you want. Text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. And a big shout out to all of our producers who help us out with their time, such as the Canary Cry tech team, those champions over there. And of course, our time stamper.
Oh, sorry. I was not prepared for that. Yes, time stampers.
Timestamp. It's hard work. Timestamp.
Jade Bouncerson.
To Jade Bouncerson, got that
Back on
email
track.
from Jade.
Good to see you, Jade.
Jade Bouncerson. Thank you to Jam for heading up the Telegram channel. Thank you to Adam42 for heading up the Discord channel. Go check it out, folks. Go to canarycry.party. Join one of our many communities that are popping off right now. If you're a Telegram person, a Discord person, you'll find those invite links over there at canarycry.party. You can also go to canarycry.community, which is a sort of off-platform sort of private social platform there, canarycry.community. Thank you to Joe for the feedback. Thank you to Clank for clanking. Thank you to Sir Ike for everything you're doing for us, Sir Ike. And of course, thank you to you, dear listener, for sharing the show, sharing it with your friends, sharing it with your family. We're going to make it through this together, folks. We call it rattling cages, and all you got to do is walk right up to them, grab by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
That's right. Just ask Noah. Guns, you got any last words?
The only last words I have today, Basil, is this right here.
I think I was psyoped.
Oh, man. Dang it. I think I was psyoped. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Make sure to tune in next time, but until you do that, think outside the cage.
Whoop, whoop.
Straight to jail, straight to jail.
I'm gonna haunt you. I'm gonna haunt you. It reeks
Chinese people look Chinese.
I am having trouble doing the show. Aleister Crowley, devil worshippers.
Give me a break. We will hunt you down and make you pay.
I'm gonna hunt you.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
I think I was psyoped.
Take it, then no man deceive you. Men shall come in my name, say I am Christ, and shall deceive any. Ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. A nation shall rise against nation, a kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
Value for value. We take no money from corporations, commies, or cartels.
Canary Cry.